In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to do the crossed treble crochet stitch. Really lovely stitch. If you used it with a bigger hook, I used a 5mm with a double knit yarn. If you used a bigger hook you would get a much lacier, drapier yarn. But what you have here basically are trebles that cross over each other here and then little gaps in between. So basically all you need is double crochet and treble and chaining and you're good to go. So let's have a look at the tutorial. Hello, my name's Karen Stangram and welcome to Conquer Crochet, the channel for tips, tricks and techniques for conquering your crochet. Everything I talk about in today's video will be linked in the descriptions below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss a single stitch. So if you're keen to get going with this video, give me a thumbs up and let's do this. So for this tutorial I'm using a double knit yarn in this lovely petrol colour. I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. I have scissors to cut off my end, my needle to sew in my end and a stitch marker just in case I need to use one. So we're going to start off with a foundation chain. So to start that we're going to make a slip knot. You can do this in whichever way you prefer. And our foundation chain is going to be made in multiples of 3. So yarn over, pull through the slip knot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pause the video now whilst you make your foundation chain in multiples of 3 and I will join you at the end. So I've made my foundation chain and I've chosen to do 21 for this sample piece. So we're now going to do our first row. So this is a 2-row repeated pattern. We have row 1 and then rows 2 and 3 are repeated throughout. Row 1 isn't going to be repeated, and just for your information, row 1 is going to be on the wrong side. So we're going to start row 1 by making a double crochet. That is UK terminology. In US terminology that would be a single crochet. So we're going to make a double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So we don't count the one on the hook. So 1, 2, we're going into that chain there with a double crochet. We're then going to double crochet into each of those chains all the way down our foundation chain. So pause the video now whilst you do all your double crochets in each of the chains back down the row, and I will join you at the end of row 1. So I finished row 1, which was my double crochets back down my foundation chain, and this is row 2 coming up now, which is the first part of the 2-row repeater pattern. So to start this off then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn our work. This chain 3 is going to act as a treble, so this counts, therefore we're not going to be counting this stitch here when we're counting our stitches. Okay, so we're going to start doing our cross treble stitches. So this one doesn't count, so we're going to miss 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and in the third one we're going to do a treble. We're then going to chain 1, and we're going to go back now to those 2 missed stitches, and in the first missed stitch, making sure you're not going into the one that counts for this 3 chain here, so in the first missed stitch we're going to do a treble again. So to do that then we're going to yarn over, come in front of all the stitches we've made here and go into that stitch, yarn over and pull it back through underneath the treble we just made, and you should have your 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and that's the first cross treble stitch. So if I bring that up a bit closer, this treble here crosses over that treble there. And we're going to miss 2 chains and make sure we're not going into this one here because that relates to the treble that we did the first treble. So skip, skip, treble into the third stitch, chain 1, and then counting back 1, 2, we're going into that stitch with our cross treble there. Skip 2, 1, 2, make a treble in the third one, chain 1, and then go back to that first missed stitch and do our treble in there. So yarn over, in through the front, pull your yarn from the back all the way through and finish off the treble stitch. And we continue that all the way down the row. So skip 2 stitches, treble, chain 1, and then go back to your first missed stitch and do a treble in that stitch. So continue all the way down this row doing that pattern, and I will meet you just before the end to show you what you need to do at the end and how to start row 3. So pause the video now. So I've just done my last cross treble and I still have a double crochet to work into here, and into that last double crochet we're going to do one last treble. That won't be a cross treble, it's going to be the treble that's going to help us keep the height all the way up that piece of work and keep nice neat straight edges. So the chain 3 there acts as a treble and the treble at the end, and that's what helps keep the stitches nice and neat. So that was row 2. Row 3 we're going to chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch, therefore we are going to work into that first stitch there. So this row is very similar to row 1 in that it's just double crochets. So we're going into that first stitch with a double crochet. So into the top of that treble, we're going to go into the top of the next treble with a double crochet. And the next double crochet is going to be done through that chain space here where the trebles cross over. We're going to do a double crochet through there. If you find you're struggling, you'll probably find you're trying to go through the chain, and we don't want to go through the chain, we want to go through the chain space. So there's your double crochet there. Now the next one looks like it shouldn't be there, it shouldn't be a chain space or something, but that is actually the top of the treble here. So we go into the treble, into the next treble, and then into the chain space. And treble, treble, chain space. And if you pull your work apart slightly, you'll be able to see where those chain spaces are. So chain space, treble, and treble. So pause the video now whilst you do your stitches all the way down this row. So remember you're doing double crochet into treble, treble, and then into the chain space. Okay, and I will join you at the end of the row where things are slightly different. Okay, so coming up to the end of the row now, so I've got treble, treble, chain space, and then the last 2 stitches you've got treble, so a double crochet into the treble, and then we have this 3 chain which counts as a treble, so we're going to go into the top of the 3 chain for the last stitch of the row. So 1, 2, 3, I'm going to go into that stitch there, yarn over, pull through, and do my double crochet there. And that's essentially the pattern. You have 1 row of cross trebles and then 1 row of the double crochets, giving you the base for the next row. So we go back to row 2 and we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn our work. Remember that counts, so we don't work into the first stitch. Skip, skip, treble. go back to the first skipped stitch, we chain 1 and then we treble into that first skipped stitch. Making sure we don't work into this one here, skip, skip, that's the one we're working into, chain 1 and then go back to the first skipped stitch, crossing over with a treble. So you can pause the video, you can go back, rewind, have a look at the different rows, pause it as you're going through. Remember, this tutorial is for you, you don't have to watch it all the way through from start to finish. It's one of those things, you're learning a stitch, you can pause, do a bit, go back, watch it again, make sure you got it right. I'm just going to work up a few more rows now so that you can see how the pattern looks when you have a bit more of the repeated rows there, and I will see you in a moment. So I've just worked up a few extra rows for you to see how the pattern works up. So it's really beautiful, you get a little bit of a drape. Had I used a bigger crochet hook I would have got more of a drape with this. If you're wanting a much more lacy pattern, then make sure you're using a bigger hook to the one recommended. So you can see we've got these lovely sort of crisscross trebles here, and then we have these little gaps in between. And quite a simple 2-pattern repeat. Doesn't look too strange on the reverse. So a really lovely pattern. So that's how to do the cross treble crochet stitch. I really hope you found today's tutorial useful. If there are any information that you need to find out about this video, have a look in the descriptions below where I post all the links to any freebies and other videos I think you might find useful. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed this video, to give me a thumbs up below. Don't forget also to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you've enjoyed it and you'd like to see more of my tutorial videos. There are 2 other videos on screen to help you on your crochet journey, and I will see you over there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy hooking!